Computer. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 9th Race Online Seminar for 2021. Today, Haswan Son will talk about user privacy preference in IoT system. You can start.
Okay, thank you very much for my introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you are work very well in your institution. I hope see you in after the vacation. So today I will continue our seminar online with my title, Projects User Privacy Reference in the IoT System. If you have any question, just let me know, and even when I talk. Okay, in my talk today, I've choose different sections. The first, let me introduce about some backgrounds, what is different between the privacy reference and the privacy policy, and how can we compare this in the choose different way of the user and the service provider side. And the last info in this section, I will give some specific requirements in the IoT system. In the next section, I will focus on 7 papers. I just saw some main idea and some limitation of this. Maybe the detail of this paper I will present in my webinar. And I focus only in some privacy negotiation in Internet of Things environments or the device, and I will give you the state of the art of this field. Finally, let me introduce some key info of my ongoing projects. In the secondment projects, I work with Chochos in UCY. We hope can publish this paper in September. So go more detail in the first section. Okay, as you know, privacy preference is include all the requirements of the user who want to protect their sensitive data or privacy information, because the malicious user can attack the user by combining some identity or some related data of a specific user, and they can apply this info for the other purpose. And privacy preference is defined to protect the user, even this data is out of user controls. And the privacy policy is very different way. In privacy policy, we can easily find some key information of the service provider. They always show the purpose, the type of data they collect, and the data is shared to the other purpose with the third party, or maybe they can explore some benefit from the other third party when they provide service to the user, many things. So the privacy preference is protect the user of the user info of the user side, and the privacy policy show all the requirements, the related infos of the privacy collected data process, or maybe how, when, why, and how they can collect the data. And even they mention the periods, how long they store the data in the server, something like that. And privacy negotiation is something like they not only do the comparison between the two sides, the user requirement and the service provider requirement. It's only give the relaxing step. It means the users may agree to share the data when they can receive some benefit from the service provider. For instance, they can receive the gift or the new voucher, or maybe they have some benefits from the next product of the service provider, something like this. However, we cannot apply directly the privacy negotiation in the IoT system because of many problems in the IoT. For example, the several party of the share data, not only the party of the user, also for the party of the service provider. For instance, we can easily find the same service and many options for the service provider. For example, in the social network, we can find Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, many things to do. So that's the reason why the user can share their data with Facebook, but they won't share this data with Twitter because of privacy policy, something like this. And what's more important in the IoT system, from the device and the architecture of this environment. The IoT device have many limitations in the abilities, like they have limits in the power, the capacity, the computation, many things. So we cannot apply the traditional security model to the IoT device. We need to think more in the upper layer. Is have the stronger power or capacity or the computation process. And one more thing, in 2020, one user can have from 6 to 7 device, or maybe it includes the sensor or the wearable device or smart device, many things, and how they can protect their data from this info. Because you know, the IoT device can collect directly and transfer it to the upper layer without the user filter. That's reasons why the user can be have small risks in the IoT system. And in the IoT system, we don't have the standard layer, the number of layer or the standard architecture, depending on the developer who will decide their service provider in different ways, maybe 3 or 4, maybe more than 4 layer. And the users must be agreed to share their information to the upper layer. When they share their data, how they can control their information. That's reason why the current model try to change from the system center to the user center. I mean the user centric, and the user have the full control over their data. And how can we decide once model can protect their user information even is out of their controls. And one small thing, in the same transaction, they may include some malicious user, and they try to collect some release data and attack their partner. That is the open problem, try to find a solution in the IoT system. So in this talk, I focus on privacy negotiation. I will show you the state of the art of the privacy negotiation in IoT system, and how can we apply this process for one specific fitness domain in the last paper I will show you. And in this talk, I cannot show all the related information of this paper. Maybe I will mention this in the webinar. And in this talk, I just show the main idea and some problem in this idea, and how can we address this problem. So let's start with the BLE's IoT device. IoT device have the limitation in the computation and the power. We cannot apply the complex task to them. That's the reason why all the information in the Bluetooth must be do some simple tasks, like receive the requirement from the upper layer and transfer to the destination. That's it. And how the outer can protect their data in this model, they try to define the privacy bus. They allow the user to define the privacy reference, and they compare the privacy reference with the privacy policy in a simple way. They just compare matching between the two keywords of privacy reference and privacy policy. That is reason why the user cannot to say different, like I just share a part of the data. They just support the user answer yes or no. It means accept or reject the policy. And the other paper of the same author, he applied the blockchain connected gateway to define the condition on the smart contract, comparing between privacy reference of the user side and privacy policy of the service provider. So it still have the same problem in the static accept or rejects option for the user, and the user cannot to say more dynamic ways like I only share a part of them, not for whole information. For example, in this paper they show the choose difference like one is the privacy policy, it collect the health information for the analysis purpose, and for the privacy reference the user only want to share the stat count, not for the analysis for the health for the fitness purpose or something like this. They cannot solve this problem. And in the third paper, they show the way try to make it more dynamic negotiation protocol, and they apply the choose way. The first, the privacy reference must be shown on the motivation when the user can be shared or how long to store the data in the simple way, and the third party or service provider must be held specific goal or the purpose for the processing or the accessing the data. But in this paper, they not show the form to define the two different privacy policy and privacy reference. They just show the idea to apply the dynamic form to answer the question of the user who want to answer the different yes or no. Okay, in the next paper, they apply XML to define the privacy reference. And the reason why they apply the XML because they can reduce the XML structure from the authorization, some of authorization models like ABAC, ACML3 version 3. And they can define in a different way of privacy policy and privacy reference in the XML structure and compare them to find the final result to send back to the user. If it doesn't match, the user can receive the reason of the reject answer, but it still have the static limitation. The user only say yes or no. To combine the two things, the dynamics and the specific form to define the privacy reference or privacy policy is in the next paper. Okay, in the next paper, the agents is like the filter. It stands between the user and the service provider. They will show the two sides, the Unix form. The user will show their requirement on privacy reference, and the service provider will show some policy they support from the user. And the agent will process the comparison between the two things and give back to the user and the service provider the answer yes or no. So it's still this model can be worked if all of user and service provider must be just on the agents. That is the reason why some of users cannot to know what they do inside of the agents. That is the main limitation of this approach. So combine the whole requirements of these papers. I have the final one. I found the final one. In this paper, they can address all the requirements I mentioned in the list of previous paper. So in this paper, they try to define the privacy reference and privacy policy in ontology. They try to define the ontology, supports many ways to compare between the privacy policy and privacy reference. And one more thing, in this model, they include the negotiation process. It means a relaxing process. The user can have the next step to receive some benefit from the service provider and share their data to service provider, even this conflict with the privacy reference. And as you can see in this model, they try to define many functions and parameters to store some key behavior of the privacy reference and privacy policy. For example, the operator and or not, or maybe they include the sub policy or the sub privacy policy. or privacy reference. So in this model, you can see here, this paper tried to define the PDM, personal data management. It looked like the layer between the user and the service provider. They try to balance the two requirements. In the PDM control the authorization, authentication, or the filing of the user, and they try to predict some benefits or some risk the user will be faced if they share their data by combining all the related personal information of the service provider. From the service provider, they receive the requirements of the privacy policy and compare with the privacy reference. And in service provider, they have to choose different service provider. The first is the original one, and second is the enhanced one. In original, they look like the static way, just say yes or no. And in the enhanced, they include the negotiation process. Whenever the comparison is failed, the user will move to the next step. The user will say yes or no, depending on the benefits they can have after the evaluation process. And once more interest in this model is the AIDS, and it also includes the RDF story. It means they try to combine the existing privacy reference and try to create the new one to answer the new service provider security, privacy policy. And they can export or infer the news one from the original, but they apply the semantic way rather than the machine learning. So I'm not sure they can work in some complex requirements. And now move to the pros and cons of this paper. In the pros, the user just show the privacy reference and they don't need to store all information about themselves. It's quite similar like blockchain or on-chain and off-chain. In the blockchain, in the on-chain, on the other party in the same transaction can verify and can see what the process in the evaluation is true or false. And in the off-chain, they do in the locally, they process it locally, and so only the output or the aggregation. And they focus on the user behavior, not only from the user decision. User decision is something like if the user defines 10 privacy reference, and if they have the new privacy policy, it not adapt any of one of 10 of privacy reference, they will be fails as well. But in the reference way, inference way, they try to generate the new one based on the meaning of the semantics approach, define the new one. And in this approach, they try to define the vocabulary. In vocabulary, on the synonym or in synonym of the one single letter or one sentence can be shown and can be included in the same category. For the cons, it did not provide a very verification privacy policy process because I got this info from something I do in the static analysis. The privacy policy, so maybe one, and they do in the scope maybe 10. They don't want to show all the information of the collection process in the personal data. They don't show everything, and they just show the limit and the retention. They say maybe I read carefully the retention, and they show the time is not focused on the key infos like how long they store this. They just mention they will store the user data whenever it's not necessary, something like this. The user cannot to get many key information from the privacy policy. That's the reason why we need to find the other way to verify privacy policy by combining between something they do and something they talk in the privacy policy. So in the next limitation, they lack a control protocol to when whenever the data transfer to upper layer, because in this paper they stop at the verify privacy policy and the privacy reference of the user, and when the result is yes, the user is lost on the control on this release data. So it's one of the main drawbacks in this model. And finally, the convenience of this model depends on the PDM. If the vocabulary of PDM cannot to identify or reference the requirement of privacy reference, they cannot to support the user in the specific requirement. That is the main point. It will become a problem when the user apply the new application from the other category. The vocabulary is not enough to cover all the requirement in this situation. So that's the reason why the vocabulary needs to update frequently. So go to the last paper in this section. Okay, in this paper, I will present about the privacy setting recommendation system. It means that the user just do some of them, and the remaining they can receive the recommendation from the system based on the knowledge from the other user in the training phase. That is the main purpose of this paper. But why they do that? So just follow it here. I don't need to reread something you see on the screen. And in here, they cannot to show the complex way to the user who don't have many skill or background in the privacy or security fields. They show in the simple way to setting the permission of the user. The permission is only from the platforms like Android or iOS. It's made from some service provider collect when they use their service, or maybe the service provider share this information to the other party, something like this. And the motivation for this paper is that the ZPDPR try to control the people who live in European country. Any company collect this data or can find some benefits from this data, they must be comply the ZPDPR privacy principle. So, and once more important is ZPDPR, the user do the setting by themselves. They don't have any support from the other third party or the other tool. It means that when it's easy for some of the expert, but it's have the challenge, a little bit challenge for the user who have short time to use some service or it's a smartphone or IoT environment. For example, in the Fitbit, the normal user must be answer 45 permission is made from the first setting in the platform permission or the collected data or the input data as well. And maybe they must be know this data to share with the other third party, or they can reuse in the other purpose. The totally is 45 permission, either big number for the normal user. And in this paper, they try to address this problem. They will show the simple way to the user who can have the recommendation in the setting process in the easy way. The first, they try to define the group of the user who have the same behavior and the same in privacy reference. And after that, in the next phase, maybe in the test phase, they will apply the knowledge from the training phase to the new user who have the same behavior. They will show the remaining setting to the new user. They can reuse this, or maybe they can change or they update the setting. So goes more detail in what they do in the model. Just the first thing you can see in this picture here, I want to make clear something. The user has many permission. They group in 4 different permission. The first, the user information in the fitness activity, what they do, or what the data points collected from the service provider, and some combination between the collected data with the third party, how they can control this information, either main property you can see in the list in here, and I will focus in this list in the next slide. And the third party and the fourth party is the service provider at the third party and the third party at the fourth party. I want to use the Unix term from the beginning to now, so I will change it. The term from the third party to the service provider and the fourth party to the third party. So in the four group of the permission, I hope you can see it more clear. Hopeful. Okay, we have four group of permission. In the first one, the group from the platform. As you can see, they choose different of the platform, the Android and the IoT. The user can easy to change the permission agree or not agree via the UI, and maybe in the first of using, the user must be show the inst of requirements like full name, address, weight, height, or maybe the email or phones or some identity information. And then in the app set, it includes some of the collected data during the use this service, like the heart rate, the step count, distance, or the calorie burns, as you see in the right corner. And what is the ZPDPR or the ZPDPR permission set? It includes all the requirements is mentioned in the ZPDPR and some related info of the privacy policy of the third party. As you can see here, it must be clear for the user, like the data minimization. The data minimization, it means when the user share the data, is enough for their just enough. They cannot to collect more than what they need for their service. And the purpose limitation, it means they agree to share the data with the health purpose. They can the service provider not apply this for the analyze or statistical purpose, something like this, and they must be include some method to protect the confidentiality or the integrity in the whole system. And the retention is very important for the user, how long they store their information in the service provider server. And I read some many document, of course not mine. I use some tool in LL, National Language Processing, NLP, to analyze this info and send it back to me. On of the privacy policy is so not include the retention period. Nearly just 10% they show the specific day and specific data. They store the data, they store the related info in the service provider server. It depends also from the categories of the third party. We can share this information for the health application, but for the sport application, we want something like this. And the reuse limitation. It means that whenever the service provider receive the data, and when they share the data with the other third party, the third party must be conformed with the user. Depending on the user decision, they can explore or not. Maybe they can define the privacy preference focus on the specific data like location, or they agree to the negotiation or not. So that's the four group of the permission. Now the group this slide show the way how they can collect the data from the participant in the in the data collection. They collect from nearly 300 participants from AMT, and they try to define the interface. It's quite similar like the Fitbit. They define its name in Fitbro. You can follow this link to find the UIs of it. It's quite similar like this. And then after the user show some basically info. They move to some collected data like heart rate or step count or calorie burn, many things. And after that, they go with the GDPR permission set. They will answer on the questionnaire. You can see in my slide here. And it is the result of the training process. They collect from 300 participants, and this is the um, um, the um, the decision of the user who want to share or not. For the asset, they easy to share. You can see here, nearly almost of them can easy to share the latest info in the asset. But in the asset and the Z set, you see two different. They can share some um, information just enough for the requirements or for the service. And if they think it is not related to the service they want. The same thing for the Z set, they can share for some safety purpose, or maybe they won't share for some government application or publish it in a public channel, social network, something like this. And combine between the F set and the Z set. The F set is some permission and privacy information of the user who use the application can be collected. And the Z set combine this information with the GDPR and privacy policy as I mentioned. And you can see in the requirement in the column here. This paper found that the user agreed to share if they know who collect this info rather than the specific data item. For example, we can easily share our data with some well-known companies like Google, Facebook, or Twitter. We easy to share this info, but in some strangers' name we not hear before, we want something like that. This is the result in this process. After they collect all the feedback of the participant, now they try to cluster this. And in this, they show many ways to how can cluster the collected data, and they cluster in choose optimal number. I don't know why they mentioned choose, because they did not to compare with the higher number of group, 3 or 4 or higher. They just mentioned if okay, choose is optimal. Okay, so maybe it is the one drawbacks in this paper. And in the first one, we group in 4 different permissions, and in the training phase, we try to cluster it in 2 different groups, and we have 4 permission group, and in each permission group we have 2 different smaller group. As cluster, you can see cluster A, cluster B for SS, and A, F, Z set as well. So after that, they apply this information for the test set. It means when the new user come with this system, they can receive the benefits from the recommendation. Like the user just give some of them. Like I just in this I must be answer 48 permission. I just answer 10 of them, and 38 I can reuse the recommendation system mentioned to me. Of course, it must be find my behavior and find the closest one and shows my recommendation to me. And to find the best how can I say, the best cluster to the new user, they apply the decision tree, and the name is Z48. I'm not a bad expert in learning algorithm. I just apply some tool, and maybe for you, you can find a better solution rather than this decision tree algorithm. And in the test phase, they collect from the 30 new user, and they also show all the information in the same way of the training phase. And from this, the user only say yes or no based on the recommendation system, and they compare with their prediction and to get the accuracy. In this slide, I'm not sure the accuracy in here because I'm not have much time to present this. So now go to the limitation. As I mentioned, they apply the choose different step of the learning. The first is clustering learning and the decision trees learning to first is for the cluster of the group of user, and the second to find the best cluster for the new user in the test phase. And they did not to show the reason why they apply this algorithm, or they did not compare with the other scenario or the other approach. In the third one, in the vocabularies mentioned in the various paper, this apply vocabulary for on the user. Okay, it's good for the application, but in the next new application or this application from the other category, the vocabulary must be extended. And they assume that the justice third party is only. It means that something they mentioned on privacy policy is something they do in the source code. But as I mentioned, they did not show all information in the privacy policy, something they do in the source code. You can find this information when you do my survey, because in survey I have two different. The first one in the what I collect from the static analysis, and the second one what I collect from the privacy policy. I use NLP to collect the collected info, related info. One more important thing in here, the personal data storage, is mean this approach just focus on personal data management, how they can provide a simple way to the user in the setting process in the first of using. But when the user after the after the verification process between the privacy policy and privacy reference, they did not mention how they can protect the user data after this process. Okay, this work is I hope I can do this work in personal data storage in maybe next project. Okay, let's go a short description of the ongoing project. I work with George in at UCY. As you can see here in this model, I define this in the 4 different layers, from the IoT layer to the cloud layer. Is our assumption. We are suppose that IoT's layer and the S layer belong of the user side. It means that the user can have the full control or define the privacy reference and collect the data from their sensor. And the boss side, the boss layer is set because the user on their device. Hopefully they don't use some malicious application, or they share their device to the other user. And the problem is when they transfer their data to upper layer, the fourth layer is not from the same privacy, the same service provider, because service provider want to increase the quality of their service. They must be launched or must be rent some computer location computer from the other third party, and one of them can be run by the justice layer, but one of them can be attacked by the hacker. The hacker can use many ways to attack one single node or a cohesion node to achieve the root permission. If the attacker have the root permission, it means the on of the local computer is unsafe. It means unjusted. That's reason why we assume that the whole fourth layer is unjusted. And the cloud layer, we also agree, because it's justed because we can compare the privacy policy and something we do in the static analysis of their source code. Just confirm that, okay, something that's mentioned on privacy policy is true, but of course it's not enough, something like this. So we are the next step, we are perform the privacy negotiation, but we cannot apply this in the S layer because maybe the user want to combine the result from the other sensor from the context, not only something they have like the temperature or the lights or the window, many things, and we cannot to enforce the perform the privacy reference and privacy process comparing at the S layer. We must do this in the upper layer, but in the upper layer we need to support the privacy referring or computation, or combine with the cryptography to support the computation process. And one news in our approach, whenever the user send in the current model, whenever the user send the requirement or send the privacy reference to the upper layer, it means in the Fox layer, the comparison process always starts even in the same privacy reference and privacy policy. Okay, me and Jojo find a way to do it in the one time, and in the next turns, if they don't have any change or update from privacy policy or privacy reference, we can reuse this result in the previous turn, and we can save more waste times. So that's my presentation today. You can, if you want to get more information about the paper, you can follow in the list of the reference here. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do we have any questions from the participants? Okay, I guess there's no question from the participants. Thank you very much again, and see you all in the next RACE online seminar for 2021, which will take place on September, because now we will have our summer break. Okay. Thank you all, and have a nice vacation. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.